Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing, the video broadcast series that features the powerful women from the shop floor to the C-suite who are changing the world through engineering and manufacturing. Today, I have Holly. I'm going to mess up your name, Holly, President of American Metalcraft. Can you say your last name? I should have asked you that before we went live, but so I do apologize. What is
That's okay. It's Gotfordson. Think about it like a ransom note. Gotfredson.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on Mavens of Manufacturing. I'm really excited to have you share your story because you had sort of an untraditional route into engineering and manufacturing. But first, I want to know more about American Metalcraft and some of the things that you do as a company. So can you share that information with us before we dive deep into your journey?
Absolutely. So, American Metalcraft celebrated 35 years in business in 2021. It was started in 1986 by my father-in-law, who's a structural engineer. It started as just kind of a small fabrication shop. And then slowly, as the years moved on and the product line grew and the need for custom architectural metal grew, we wound up with a national presence of projects. So some of the products that we offer are aluminum rain screens, custom sunshades, brake metal, perforated panels, which have really become popular in the last several years, ornamental metal, and then custom exterior elements. Those could be ornamental grills. Those could be a focal point for a large project. We do some interior work, but typically we are on the outside of the building. But we have done, large projects. One of the largest projects we've done to date is the Fort Bliss Hospital in El Paso, Texas. That was 130,000 square feet of rain screens, fascia and soffit panels, and column cover wraps. In 2004, my father-in-law saw a niche in the market for a second company, Finishing Dynamics. And Finishing Dynamics is a paint line located in Villa Rica. And initially, we had two facilities. We had American Metalcraft off Howell Mill in Atlanta, and then the paint line in Villa Rica. And in about 2010, we decided to merge those facilities. And what we found out was that we really had a great process from start to finish, all under one roof. And so we were able to save our customers money. Instead of them having to go to two facilities and shipping between the two, we control the process from start to finish. And we just love that aspect of our business. And so that allows us to engineer, fabricate, and finish, control the process from start to finish, and really offer top quality products. In addition to, having our own products manufactured and fabricated with American Metalcraft through Finishing Dynamics, we paint for other fabricators. So we offer three options to work with us. We can do your metal coatings. We can do fab finish packages, which is customer gives us the drawings and then we just fabricate and finish it. Or we can do the engineering, fabrication, and finishing, the whole process through the American Metalcraft brand.
That's got to be really helpful too in the time that we're in now, especially with all the supply chain issues that a lot of manufacturers are facing. So it's good to have that one company that can help with your project from start to finish. In terms of who your audience is that you serve, are you mostly a U.S. manufacturer with U.S. customers, or do you also have an international customer base as well?
We're primarily in the U.S. We ship coast to coast. Another project we were a part of was the SeaTac Airport in Washington. We worked with SFSU University in California. So we go all over the U.S. Some of our painting customers, those products that we're strictly providing coatings for, sometimes are international products. But we just do the coating portion of that, and then they ship to their destination.
Okay. And we talked before our interview during a pre-briefing, and as you were sharing your story, you sort of had an untraditional route into engineering and manufacturing, which seems to be very common among women within engineering and manufacturing career pathways. So can you talk more about that and how, you found out about what engineering and manufacturing was, and if this was like your career pathway that you wanted to start into, or did you have other plans of what you wanted to do as a career before coming into this sector?
Absolutely. Well, my childhood dream was never to be in metal manufacturing. I didn't even know that it existed. Truthfully, when I was a child, I thought about a lot of different things. I was creative. I love to draw. I love to paint. I was a musician and still am kind of on the side. I took piano lessons. And so I had a lot of creativity, but I didn't know what to do with it. I grew up in rural Alabama, and so, career options back in the 70s and early 80s, especially for women, were fairly limited. When I moved to Atlanta when I was about 10 years old, I had a wider range of exposures, but again, no one ever really specifically talked to me about what a career in manufacturing, engineering, architecture, construction would look like. I think primarily because those careers were mainly with men. And so as I, went to college, I had been progressing in drawing and art and painting. And I really, again, didn't have a whole lot of direction on where to put that. So I landed on art history. I knew that I loved writing. I loved critical thinking, analytics, and I also loved art. So that career path seemed like it might be a good fit. After I graduated from Georgia, I worked at the High Museum of Art in Atlanta. And although I loved the art I was surrounded with, this wasn't my love. It wasn't my passion. And so I met my husband and found out about his companies. And I remember when we first got married, people would ask me, what kind of business is your husband in? And I had no idea how to explain it. I didn't know that much about it really. He's in welding. He does something with metal. I don't really know. And so as I dove more into meeting him at work, seeing the facility, talking to his family, talking to my father-in-law about the overall process, I became really intrigued with that. By then, I had moved on to a career in marketing and advertising in the real estate world and spent about a decade doing that. And again, my skill set, I learned so much through that process, learned how to market a business, learned a lot of accounting skills. It was just a great experience overall. And I had a great mentor in my boss through that period. And that started translating a little bit into the metal manufacturing industry. So what happened was my father-in-law and my husband would say occasionally to me, hey, can you do a flyer for our business? Or, hey, our website doesn't look that great. Can you help us with that? And so I'd kind of do side projects and they'd say, hey, we've got filing, some office things. Can you help us with that? And so the ask became more and more and more. And I was more than willing to help because I was just intrigued by this business. I had never known that this existed. And so slowly but surely, I got pulled into a full-time position. And I'm so grateful that I had wonderful mentors around me. We are very fortunate to have had long-term employees, long-term team members that went out of their way and took their time to teach me and to instruct me about the business. And I loved it. I learned everything I could learn. And I also loved the artistry that I found in metal manufacturing. And that was something that I just had no idea, especially with the paint line, being down on the shop floor, watching all the products go through the coating process, looking at what we were creating in the welding bays. It was fantastic. And so I really fell in love with it. And over the years, I started moving up in positions. I took on more and more responsibility. And in 2017, I purchased American Metalcraft from my family. So I'm proud to be a second generation owner, but there's a lot of responsibility with that. My father-in-law, my family has done a tremendous job building American Metalcraft and Finishing Dynamics, two brand names, two wonderful businesses. And so that's a great responsibility to make sure that those names hold up to the high standards that they've set for me. And so I'm very honored and very excited to be a part of both of those companies. As a matter of fact, last year, in October of last year, I purchased the majority of Finishing Dynamics. So they are both woman-owned companies, and
That's
I'm
awesome.
going through the certification process right now. So I'm really excited about that.
Now, is this something that you co-own with your husband, or you own it outright by
So
yourself?
American Metalcraft, I own outright.
Okay.
Finishing Dynamics, he has a very, very small portion, and I own the majority.
I think that's really cool that, it was part of his family that you invited you in, and then you slowly learn. And you said so many amazing things too, because I think your journey shows like how fun and how continuous learning always happens within engineering and manufacturing. And there's people within the sector that have so much knowledge, working as long as they have in the sector, and they're so open to sharing that knowledge and helping each other out. It's such a great place to be in for that camaraderie. I know with my experience as a writer, one of the biggest challenges I've always had was getting engineers to really open up about some of their experiences and their skill sets, because they're somewhat socially awkward and can tend to have
Right.
difficult personalities. But once you get them talking, they get really excited, and you can see that passion. And it's interesting to hear that you sort of started out in marketing, which is an area that a lot of manufacturers still struggle today, and it takes all of that artistry. And a lot of people are unaware of some of the artists out there that are using some of these basic skill sets of welding and CNC machining to make really cool art pieces. There's a woman welder out there. I believe her name is Barbie the Welder. She's on LinkedIn, and she creates these beautiful sculptures and these unique pieces all through welding different types of metal together. It's really cool to see that. So a lot of stuff that you touched on, that's really exciting. I don't know if I could personally work with my husband all the time. I think that would be a conflict of interest, definitely for us, because we're both we both have the same personality, so that would probably be a struggle on my end to work with my husband every day. But in terms of like, you know, when we talked before, you touched on some of the skill assessment tests that you took while you were going through school and stuff. Can you touch a little bit on that? Because I think that's a huge area where counselors, especially in high school, can kind of miss the mark in terms of helping students, because just because you have a certain skill set doesn't mean you should go down a certain path. You might be a fit somewhere else. So can you touch a little bit on that and explain how that process went when you were in high school?
Absolutely. One of the things that over the course of middle, high school ish years, they would do with us is, they would give us a skill assessment test to kind of point us in the right direction of what might be a good career fit. And I got high marks for creativity, of course, but the careers that were offered to me were kind of in this niche of graphic design, marketing, advertising, and there really was never any type of focus on the larger picture, where those skills could be used, such as architecture. I think architecture would have been a great path for me, as well as manufacturing, because architecture combines art, design, critical,
Mhm.
analytical thinking, putting together a building and thinking about how that building's going to all piece together. And manufacturing, creating a product that's going to fill a need. Every project is different, so you get the opportunity to, if an architect comes to us and says, hey, this is the look that I'm going for, how can I build this? Then that gives us a challenge and a really exciting opportunity to come up with a product maybe we didn't have in our bailiwick, something new and
Mhm.
exciting that we can now offer. And so I really feel like students don't necessarily know about these opportunities. I feel like that there's a limited scope that they're given as far as options for careers. And manufacturing seems not to be a part of that conversation. And so, one of the things that I've challenged myself to do this year is, every year I make New Year's resolutions, and I never really lose weight, I never really exercise more. It's like January through March, and then you just kind of go. But
Yeah.
this year I thought, this is this is something that I can really get on board with and get excited about and continue to do this, hopefully not only this year, but in years to come. And that is to bring manufacturing to the forefront of those conversations that teachers are having with students, that young professionals groups, when they're reaching out to career-minded people, thinking about their next step, whether it be college, whether it be a trade school, but pretty much giving them the tools and the information they need to present those options in a positive way. I think some people hold the old picture in their head that manufacturing is, just a factory job, and there's so much more that's out there. There's
Absolutely.
so many different skill sets that are needed: programmers, draftsmen, designers, of course, general labor, machine operators. And then you look at the advent of AI in manufacturing that's working alongside humans, and you look at what is that going to look like in 5 years. We need to reach those young professionals and those students that are out there that may have a really great idea on how to improve upon that and make their own career path within that manufacturing space. So,
Absolutely.
I'm really passionate about that, and that's something that I hope to do this year.
I think that's another big miss too within high school, because when I was in high school, I was under the assumption that I needed to be really good at math or science in order to pursue something technical, and that's not necessarily the case. And a lot of people miss the connection that design has with manufacturing. So you could be amazing at design and still find a space in engineering or manufacturing, because you know um, the reason why people buy things is, a high majority of it is based on what it looks like, and if it looks appealing or interesting or entertaining, and if that look isn't there, they might, move on to something else. So design is a huge part with manufacturing, and I think some people overlook that connection that the two have. And you don't necessarily have to be good. I'm terrible at math. I'm okay with science. Like, I like biology and stuff, but I could never remember like the formulations and everything like that in chemistry. So I did okay, but I wasn't at the top of the class. But my writing ability, I was able to accidentally fall into it. Just like, most women that I talk to, they started somewhere else, and then their skill set led them into engineering and manufacturing. So it's really interesting to hear that common denominator among women, that, they pursued something else, and then their skill set just kind of directed them into engineering and manufacturing. I know there's some things that you have done in the past to really advocate for STEM and STEAM career opportunities. Can you touch a little bit on that? Like, yeah, you spoke about AIA Georgia. She built this city, which I mentioned before, that song's been stuck in my head since our last conversation. Um, so can you explain what some of those experiences were like, and what you did, and how they really connect with the next generation to get excited about engineering and manufacturing?
Absolutely. So the AIA Georgia, it's the Architecture Foundation of Georgia. And what
Okay.
it does is it offers scholarships and grants to people that are thinking about a career path in architecture. There's several different scholarships and different ways to apply. One of those, I believe, is the Innovation Scholarship. And, that's money that's set aside for somebody that has a great idea about how to improve the community through architecture, how to improve, the quality of life, whatever we have, our surroundings. It's gonna better something for the greater good, and so that gives that person funds to be able to create that, whatever that is, and present it. So there's just some great opportunities there. There's been some discussions about expanding that program, especially with COVID, to students that may need supplies to continue their career path in architecture, but may not have the funds. So the board is currently discussing a few things like that, but just different ways to help bring that career to students and young professionals that may not have the means to pursue it. And then She Built This City is a wonderful organization. I'm fortunate to be part of the advisory board, and She Built This City is really wonderful in raising awareness about the opportunities for young women and girls in the skilled trades. So during COVID, they kind of pivoted and used almost like a tricked out van, if you will, to, instead of, holding workshops at their location, they would go to different places in the community and do different workshops and teach how to build something, a small project, to get women and girls involved in hands-on practice with what this might look like and how you could expound and build upon that. And so they have a lot of great partnerships. I know Lowe's is one of their big sponsors, and they've done a wonderful job with sounding the alarm and letting people know, hey, women are needed in these fields, and there's plenty of openings, especially with the labor shortage. And this is a great opportunity for a career that you can grow and build upon and call your own.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. You also did some work with a past guest of mine, Allison Giddens, who is the co-owner of WinTech in Georgia as well. Can you talk about that? Because she actually spoke about that in our interview of what she did during COVID to help, get kids excited about engineering and manufacturing. So can you talk about that a little bit and how you got connected with her?
Absolutely. So Allison and I are both members of WIM, Women in Manufacturing. And we met a couple of years ago. I was a new member, wasn't really sure what the organization offered, but I had read a lot about it, and it looked like something that I should be a part of. And Allison welcomed me in, gave me a lot of great information, and they host plant tours. There's all type of events and seminars and leadership training that happens throughout the year. So I've really learned a lot through that particular organization. But Allison and I connected and stayed connected for a while. And then when COVID happened, she reached out to me and said that she had this great idea to do an advanced virtual manufacturing internship. At WinTech, I think typically they have in-person internships that they offer for students. And because in-person wasn't possible at that point, she really came up with this wonderful concept of doing it virtually. And so when she reached out to me, she asked me if I would be a presenter as part of this series of learning events. And I was thrilled to be a part of it. And what I loved about it is, not only did I enjoy participating, and I learned so much from the students and their questions. They asked some really great questions. I could tell they were paying attention and they were really absorbing a lot of what we were talking about. But I also loved listening to the other presenters. And then at the end of the sessions, the students put together presentations for us. And we were able to see what they got out of all the information that we gave them. And I got to say, just the imaginativeness of the things they came up with. There was a student that came up with, for restaurants, a hand sanitizer station that had salt and pepper shakers on top of it. And when you sat down, you had the QR menu, and then you just stuck your hand under the hand sanitizer, and immediately you were ready to eat your food in a clean environment. There were just so many great things that they came up with. And it really just, I was so excited for them. And I thought, man, if we could multiply this effort and get the word out and have this level of enthusiasm from students, imagine what innovations would come from that. I just really had a great time being a part of that. And I hope to continue. I think she's continuing the program every year. And so I really hope to be a part of that again.
I think that's a great example too. I love Allison, by the way. I think her sense of humor is fantastic. It's refreshing to see, her posts on LinkedIn and some of the comments that she has, and just her overall story is a pretty amazing one. And I think her internship program that she did during COVID, I think that's a great example of how easy it is to do things virtually. So just because we're in this, I'm going to say semi-pandemic state because it's not as
Yeah.
bad as it was when it first started.
Right.
But the semi-pandemic state that we're in, um, it goes to show that just with a little extra hard work and a little passion, you can come up with solutions to still connect with your community. I know she mentioned that she had an international student too for one of the programs, and she's like, and they were brought to me. I didn't look for them. They were actually suggested to me. And I think it's just great to see that we can also connect to other countries during this time and still, provide education, still provide information, and get kids connected to what engineering and manufacturing looks like. We don't necessarily have to be face to face. We can do it virtually. And it really provides no excuse for some of those, businesses that are kind of saying they can't do it or they don't have time. Like, you can do it if you just put a strategy together. So I'm really excited to see or hear about what she does next time, because she kind of said some of the same things that you said. She was really proud of the students and in awe of some of the ideas that they brought to the table and what they presented. And she's like, it's just, if this is what our future is going to look like, she's like, it's pretty bright because they had some fantastic ideas. And that's what companies are looking for. They're looking for that innovation and that passion behind what they're providing value for. And it was really exciting to hear. Well, Holly, I just appreciate you coming on to Mavens of Manufacturing and sharing some of the things you do. And one of the things that I want to do for you is, help in any way that I can. So for our audience that is tuning in to this episode, what would be one of your biggest asks for them? Like what do you need help with, or, what do you want to do moving forward? It's a new year, it's 2022. Things are starting to open back up again. So what would your biggest ask be for our audience today?
I going back to what I said earlier, about my New Year's resolution, I would love the opportunity to share manufacturing and to share my story, what we offer, not only, product wise and kind of the mechanics of what we do, but overall the manufacturing, architecture, and construction opportunities that are out there. I I would love to share that, especially, of course, to all students, but especially to young women that may not just be thinking about this career because roles have predominantly, traditionally been male. And I'd love for them to see, hey, women are in this space and there's all these great opportunities for y'all. So come join me, come explore it, take a look at it, see what you think. And, so I'd love to speak to high schools virtually or in person, middle schools, if there's young professional groups out there. I'd just love to have about an hour of their time, do a brief 45-minute presentation, and then have about 15 minutes for questions at the end. It's strictly voluntary, so there's no charge. There's this is kind of my mission, because I look back on my life and I wonder, man, had I had the exposure to this when I was in high school, where would that have taken me? What would my major have been? I could have pursued this earlier, and what would I have done differently? And so I just want to raise awareness of the opportunities that are available and share that with others.
So anyone who has any ideas for Holly, make sure you follow her. I'll put the link to American Metalcraft at the bottom below. She's also available on LinkedIn, so be sure to connect with her on LinkedIn. What I'm personally going to do for that ask for you is I'm going to actually connect you to, her name is Deb Prowse. She is the career academic coach for Beloit Memorial High School in Beloit, Wisconsin. For those of you who remember the mini summit that I had back in October of 2021. She was one of the teachers that I actually interviewed during that live event, and they want to bring more people in virtually if possible, to present something to their classroom. So I'm going to connect the two of you. Hopefully that will provide an example for anyone watching this episode to do the same. And then before I let you go, for anyone that might be on the fence of whether or not, engineering and manufacturing is the right career choice for them, what sort of advice would you give them?
I would say do some plant tours, get hands-on and talk to people that are in the field, because there is such a variety of options out there. Of course, with engineering, there's chemical engineering, civil engineering, structural engineering, and manufacturing. There's thousands of products out there. There's thousands of ways that things are manufactured. So explore those, find out if it's something like us where we're on the outside of buildings. We've got to think about, is this aesthetically beautiful as well as protecting the building and the occupants within? Is what we're offering going to help with energy? Is it sustainable? And of course, with aluminum being 100% recyclable and sustainable, we love that about what we manufacture. And think about those things. Does whatever the product is, or does whatever the manufacturer is producing, does that align with who you are as a person and what you're interested in? So I think the more conversations that you can have with the people that are working in the field, I think the more educated you'll be about that decision as to whether or not you pursue a career in either of those two fields.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Holly. I really appreciate your time. To all of you who tuned in to this episode, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and make sure to tune in next week for another Mavens of Manufacturing episode. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This has been another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. Subscribe for more and make sure to tune in next time.